I'm Kristen Vengler, and our mission with this podcast is to help you and the people who love you through the shock of diagnosis and treatment.
I'm Eva Shea, and the incredible woman whose story you're about to hear is a nurse practitioner in San Francisco who has dedicated her life to caring for patients more vulnerable than you can imagine.
Her name is Natasha. This is a story about what happens when you have breast cancer, told in real time.
The short story that we can elaborate on was I met with my radiation oncologist today, who I really like, and she had her NP with her. And, they looked, and I'm doing fine because I've only had 6 treatments at this point. And they're like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like, no, how you doing? And I lost it. And it's the first time, and out came the tissues. And they kind of triggered it. I was like, when am I going to feel close to normal again?
Yeah.
I said, I know I'm not going to bounce back. I haven't bounced back from any of this shit, but give me. And they're like, honestly, not this year. And I was just like, yeah. And I get that because I don't stop radiation until the beginning of October. And then they brought up, a lot of the issues. Like, you're way underweight. We've made a referral to nutrition. We want you to see like psycho-oncology or something. Like, have you ever taken an antidepressant? I'm like, yeah, I'm on an antidepressant. She's like, well, it's clearly not working. So we want you to see psychiatry as well. And I was like, and in a way I felt like, oh, fuck, finally somebody's like getting all these pieces and putting them together. But It just made me feel like, is there any bit of me that's not broken at this point? It was like, thank you for seeing all this. And it was, they were great. They're like, this is not a personality. Like, you haven't become a bad, lazy person. We've done this to you in a way, kind of.
Yeah.
And what's amazing about UCSF, I mean, the longer I'm with them, I'm so happy because they have a psycho-oncologist.
Oh, nice.
It's like a psychologist who decided to specialize in oncology. I don't know what that means. And they signed me up with him right at the beginning. And I had like a 2-minute conversation with the guy and said, I'm fine. I don't need to see you. And he's like, okay, you might a little bit later. So let me know. And today they were like, yeah, we're getting you back in with him.
Yeah.
Just the whole the whole self-care thing has definitely been slipping. It's no great surprise. But it's funny. Like, radiation is so benign. You just kind of lie there, and there's not even a noise with mine. There's not even warmth. There's not even a beam that I can look at.
Oh, there's not like a green beam that comes down, and there's no like cha-chunk, cha-chunk, cha-chunk. None of that?
No.
Oh.
So I have, it's like they're doing their stuff on the right-hand side. They want my head tilted to the left. So every now and then I like squint my eyes so I can see, but there's really nothing. Like, I don't know when it's finished. I don't know when it started. I know nothing. So we had to skip Friday because they were updating their software. So when I went in yesterday, there's like all the reps for the new software are still there. Like, I have never had so many strangers look at my boobs in the space of 20 minutes. It's like, they're all, oh my Lord.
Right?
So just to sort of back up a bit, because I know you and I have talked, but I haven't talked officially on the podcast. So it was really nice when I met with them for the sort of the preamble. They gave me a choice of gowns. So we have our own individual gowns that you choose. There's a choice of 3, and it's a sort of a silky, kind of like a not nylon, that sounds disgusting, but it's not silk, obviously, but it's
faux silk, kind of.
Right. So it's not cotton. So you don't feel like you're sweating in it. And, they're very frumpy, and they're made for all sizes. So they're big on me. But then the way they've done it, so it has like a V-neck and then a wraparound thing. So you don't have to take your bottom clothing off at all. And what's really nice is basically, you can walk around in these. Your back's not open. And you feel like you've had some say in it because you've chosen it. Right. Like, I look at the other women and I wish I'd chosen another one, but mine's like blue and floral. And, but what's nice is that because of the bigness of it, You can wear it around. Then when you sit on the table, you can just slip your arms out and it's there. And it's nice. Like it feels, I don't know why it feels different. Like somebody must have done some research. I mean, I think for them, it's one less thing that they're having to wash, which might be something to do with it. I don't, but I think it's like giving you a sense of agency. Like there was this woman today who'd obviously lost her hair through chemo, and she had chosen like basically like kind of like the cougar version of this. Like it's a leopard skinny thing.
I love
And
it.
she's dyed her hair blonde over the little bit of hair that's come in. And she's got this like kind of leopard cougar hair dye. She looked fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
That's amazing.
So, you get that and you go in, and again, they've got good music playing and it's nice people and they know you. And, I heard somebody before me, it was like, oh, Cynthia, it's your last day. Congratulations. Like, so it's a little bit more personal.
Yeah. So, you're talking about the research, and about the gown and stuff. I thought I was like some freak because I didn't want to put the gown on because everybody else in the gown room was in a gown. And you could tell, who is going for what kind of, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Are you in a room with?
Well, so the hospital is so huge that radiation oncology has like a massive wing of its own. So basically, you come in the front door and they recognize me already. And they're like, Curry, you checked in. So you don't sit and wait. You just go right into the back, you get changed, and then you sit in like a sort of a side room and they come and get you.
That's what I called the gown room, was the side room.
Yeah. And pretty much everybody there, like all the women are in these gowns. So it's like we're all breast cancer patients. It's like, except when you go in the room and there's these like intense looking like full body frames and head frames. I'm just like
crazy, right? It's like a fencing outfit kind of.
Yes.
Almost. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And we know that breast cancer loves to metastasize to the brain. So I'm looking at some of these and just like, whoa, yeah, that's a great term, the fencing outfits. And one today almost came down like it was a head and almost like a body. I'm like, oh man, that looks really freaking intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's, there's a sort of a flippancy from everybody because it doesn't hurt. And it's pretty quick. Mine's about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Like I said, I'm never entirely sure when it starts. I know when it finishes because they come bouncing in like, okay, see you tomorrow. And so because I skipped Friday because they were getting the software update, on Thursday, I thought I looked like I was getting a bit of sunburn, like between the boobs sunburn, and then that disappeared. And they just want me to use one cream, the calendula cream. And they're like, don't use anything else that any of your friends gave you. Like you read online, you should please just stick with the program. I'm like, okay. So they also have this thing that they call Mepilex. I don't know if anybody ever...
yeah. Oh, I love the Mepilex.
Yeah.
Oh, that saved me my last 2 weeks.
Huh. So what happens with me is, so they put it on at the beginning, and the underarm Mepilex, I rubbed that off within like about a day and a half. That really didn't work. And then on about day 3, one of the technician nurses was like, I think the way they've put the Mepilex on is pulling your boob a certain way because we're missing the tattoos. And I'm not comfortable with this. So she took it off. And I was like, I'm fine.
How big is it?
Oh, it's like 6 inches by 4. It's huge.
Oh, okay.
It covers the whole boob.
Okay.
And so today they put another Mepilex on. And when I went in for treatment, the nurse was like, nope, they're pulling your boob in a certain way. And we're like, everything's off from the measurement. And I was like, I'm fine without the Mepilex at this point, because for me, the Mepilex made putting the creams on hard, more difficult.
Yeah, right.
And I'm still relatively unscathed, but I can feel under my arm. So they added another cream today, mometazone, if that rings a bell, because they said I have some swelling left over from surgery.
Okay.
Or they're like, you've got some fullness left over from surgery. And I was like, okay, I don't like the sound of that. So,
okay.
And then it was interesting talking to Dr. Singer, who's the radiation oncologist. she was going over some of the side effects. And I was like, yeah, I'm tired, but I can't figure out, like, I've kind of been tired the whole time. And that's when this discussion about maybe seeing one of the psychologists came up. And I was like, but I also have some nausea, and I don't know if that's related to radiation or if that's just like my body tells my stress and anxiety. So rather than crying into the pillow, they get weird physical.
Sure.
But it was interesting. She said, we're actually touching the tip of your liver with the radiation. She's like, so that makes sense that you would have some nausea from that. So take Zofran about half an hour before you come for treatment. And I love getting advice like that because that would have never have crossed my mind.
Right.
So that made a lot of sense. I was like, okay, we'll try that tomorrow. I mean, the nice thing about getting treatment every day is you can try something and, we'll try it tomorrow. And then, again, she's like, do you think you're keeping well hydrated? And I was like, no, probably not. Like, not enough, she says, looking at half a glass of wine.
Do you find yourself really thirsty some days afterward?
I'm not sure because I have this, I have this thing like I'm always hungry and I'm probably always thirsty and I always need a pee, but I don't often respond in the right time.
Right.
And I think some of it's being a bedside nurse. Like for 4 or 5 years, I ran around and I could hold my bladder. I mean, I'll go out with friends and they'll be like, you haven't peed for hours. I'm like, oh, I need to pee.
People would say the same thing. I'm like, I have to hold it for 55 minutes at a time and sometimes maybe 4 sessions of that. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, so just so, the audience knows where we are with your radiation, this is your second week, right?
It is. So we skipped Friday because, like I said, they were getting a software update or something. So I've actually only had 6 treatments.
Okay. And did they tell you they're going to tag it onto the back?
Yep. And then there was a discussion about a boost, which I've read about. And I didn't really delve into the questions, like my questions I have about this. And I may do it next time I see her because she said, we're having a hard time finding the cavity. And I wasn't sure if that's the cavity in my breast where they took the tumor out or if it's in my armpit where they took the lymph nodes out. So she said, we don't feel that we can do a boost, so we'll just do one more treatment.
Interesting.
Okay. Like you're the nuclear physicists, not me. So I've got all of this week, all of next week, and then the Monday, Tuesday of the following week.
Okay. So basically you were getting 15 treatments. So there's 3 weeks and then they added the extra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is so odd that one extra treatment is even worth all the hassle, but
yeah,
I don't really understand. This is the modality of treatment I understand the least.
Right.
To me, I responded so well to chemo that I don't understand how little cells can still be around, like the micro metastases after the chemo. It's baffling to me. And I had this kind of thing on Friday about maybe it's just a big conspiracy theory. And there's nothing to it. They just lie you on a table.
Charge your insurance.
Because I got a bill, not that I have to pay, but I got a breakdown of the costs. Oh my God. Do you remember that weird, like, sticky thing that I had to give me the new Neulasta?
Yeah.
That thing that they stick on your arm?
Yeah.
$33,000.
Yes, because I had the new Neulasta and I had it on my stomach. Mine was only 17.
Things are cheap in San Diego.
Maybe I got the used one.
$33,000. And I had it 6 times.
Okay, so you know that if you don't have that, you can just go back the next day and get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's all it is, right? I remember I was telling the infusion nurse, I said, oh my gosh, I just saw my EOB. Do you know how much these are? She's like, I've been dying to know how much. And I told her, and she's like, and you could just come tomorrow and have a shot. I said, how much is the shot? She goes, max 100.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. I know.
I mean, my surgery was about $120,000. It was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
But they didn't find any cancer for you.
So they didn't. But one of the things that I was told was when they did the original fine needle aspiration biopsy. So they go in you with a needle and they pull out cancer cells. They can do what's called seeding. So they can drag cancer cells back as the needle comes out. So that wouldn't have shown up in the surgery because they're not looking at lumps, but that can be, they can seed the track where they pull out the needle.
Wow. Well, so the only way I could tangibly think of it is that a friend of mine was talking about having endometriosis. And a friend of hers had a situation where the endometriosis started growing on her scar because endometrial cells, something got caught right there where the incision was. And, when we had the interview with Dr. Pacella, and what Eva and I, like, our jaw was dropping because it was two separate surgeries. They were talking about how my surgeon did his thing, and then they close up the incision. They remove everything having to do with that. There's actually a separate table that they put you on.
That's right.
And they redrape you and everything because he said, I don't want anything having to do with his surgery in mine. And I was like, I thought that was fascinating.
So if you remember from the last time we met, they gave me these three options. It was, we just do the breast and underarm, or we include the lymph nodes above your collarbone and we do a whole, like a much wider area. And the risk is like, you may have a hard time swallowing. And I was like, okay, at that point, no, thank you very much. So that would have been the full 6 weeks. If I'd just done the breast, I think it would have been the shortest, and breast and lymph nodes underarm leads me to this 3.5 weeks. And I have no regrets at this point. It's a little strange to go somewhere every day. And there's that, like, I'm riding my moped, so I'm looking for parking, and you go in and this, and they know you, but it's more manageable than it feels when they suggest it. Like, I was thinking today as I was going in, like, even if this were for 6 weeks, I would still be able to do it somehow. Yeah. It's like, it's the 12-step thing. It's like one day at a time. I'm not
It really is. It really is.
I mean, because of the distance, like, it takes an hour and a half, the whole thing. Even if I'm at work and I haven't been going into work that much because I don't have a ton to do. And my new director is super understanding. She's like, if you can work from home, work from home.
Yeah.
And today I slept super late and I caught myself and like, this is the feeling sorry for yourself behavior.
It's okay though,
I guess I know. Yeah.
If I was your palliative care giver and we were talking, what would you tell me if you knew you felt this way?
I think I would check in with you if it feels okay doing that. And if it does, do it. What happens with me is it doesn't feel okay. When I'm not getting out of bed and getting on with the day and having a healthy breakfast and walking the dog, I feel like I've given in to the cancer in a way. And I'm not getting into like, it's a fight. And I like, it's not that. It's more of like
the mental strength.
The mental strength, and also going back to how unbelievably lucky I am with the stage I have, with the health that I have still through this. I mean, the fact that I've got a bit of nausea and I'm a little bit tired, and it's like, come on.
I know. But you know what? You went through chemo. You're still having infusions. And I think we've talked about this. I know I mentioned it on the podcast, and I thought for sure look at me, I'm handling this. I'm crying when I need to. I'm sad when I need to. Look at me, I got this. And then when all my treatments were over, I was a basket case. I think it was that I thought I was just going to do these things and then I would be fine and then I would move on. And it's just not that easy. It wasn't that easy for me.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's very tied up with my separation, with being in Malawi. I mean, there's a way that when you work with Doctors Without Borders and you're leaving a project, they help you wrap it up and acknowledge that you weren't able to do all the things you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed thought you could do coming into the field. And they help you sort of get back into, not being a complete pain in the ass when you get home. Because a lot of people are. It's like, oh, you're complaining about the milk's gone off. Like, you should see what I saw in Africa. It's like, and all that got curtailed because my separation got initiated while I was in Africa. So I didn't get to wrap up Malawi. I came back and it was like, I wasn't processing Malawi. I wasn't processing my separation. And then I got my diagnosis, and it's all like, they're not the same, but they've all become in the same pot for me. We've talked offline, but it was very sweet that somehow Doctors Without Borders found this podcast.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Who knows how? Like, their communications department is remarkable, because maybe they get a trigger if Doctors Without Borders gets mentioned, or somebody is going through cancer treatment, and I don't know. And what was really sweet was they've initially asked if they could share it with other people with Doctors Without Borders. And I was like, it's a public podcast. Like, right from the beginning, I've been very open. I have no shame about this. And then, a group from human resources and more sort of the officey people, they sent me a card saying, we hope you're doing well. And they've only heard the first 2 or 3 episodes.
Oh, wait till they get into it.
I know. So I actually emailed like the head of human resources, and I said, spoiler alert, I'm actually doing really well. And expect to see me in March looking for another placement somewhere.
Wow.
It's like, so yeah, that was a really nice, really unexpected side effect of doing this.
You know what I'm realizing when you were talking about the way that they kind of transition you out of Malawi, that there's no transitions in cancer.
Right.
It's just like, here's your diagnosis, here's your treatment plan. But that to me is like a piece that's missing.
It's also interesting to me how there are so many different doctors involved. My oncologist, I haven't seen her for months. I mean, she's in charge of this whole thing, but now I have a radiation oncologist. I had a plastic surgeon for a hot second. I had a breast surgeon, and I know they work as a team because I know how the hospital works. But it would be really nice to have actually met them all at once at a beginning meeting of like, this is what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, agree.
And the crazy thing is, I'm getting letters in the mail from UCSF saying, hi, Natasha, it must be time for your mammogram. You haven't had a mammogram for... I'm just like, could somebody please look at... I mean, I don't know if it would make a difference if I did anything from this, but it's like, have a little bit of sense, like open my chart, somebody.
Right.
And also, don't get me started about mammograms.
No, you know what? I'm not ever having a mammogram again. Y'all are going to give me MRIs every year.
Yeah. It would be interesting to do a story of somebody who has kids and a husband who are taking care of them.
Yes.
Like, I'd love to know what that's like.
Yeah.
Because I have a mixed emotion every time, and it's almost every time I go to the hospital, they'll say, did somebody come with you? And every single time I've said, no, I'm here alone. And there's a pride to that, but there's also a kind of a deep sadness. And it's tipping more to being like, nope, it's me. And I've got through this mostly on my own. I mean, you're the same. It's like, they were asking me today, it's like, why do you think you've lost so much weight? And I was like, well, if I'm not feeling well, either physically or emotionally, nobody's cooking dinner for me downstairs.
Right. It's interesting because there's a friend of mine that I went to high school with, and I think she has a stage 3, and she had a full mastectomy. She's like a combo of us, but hers was HER2 positive. But she has either a high school, if not college age son and husband. And I remember when she got her bandages off, she said, I haven't looked, but my husband's looked. And he empties the drains. And I was like, what is that like? I think it would be interesting to get somebody who had that support, and also somebody who was like in the business world. Like you and I have, how do you say it? Service professions. They're professions, but they're in a different realm than a 9 to 5.
Right. And also, my staff meeting on Thursday, there's a check-in with the group. I'm like, and by the way, I have to leave 15 minutes early to go to radiation. Everyone's like, because it's healthcare. I'm not leading a team that's running Wells Fargo's strategy department or something. It's like, Of course I'm going to go.
And you and I haven't had to worry about losing our job.
Right.
Because of it.
And I've been able to be, not super vulnerable at work, but I've been very open with everybody at work. And, and I get a little bit of the sideways look, but mostly people are like, good for you. How you doing? Oh, you had, we speak the same language. You had like, oh, how many rounds of Taxotere are you getting? Oh, that's great. It's like, I think of one of my best friends who's like a senior VP at Wells Fargo. I don't know how the hell she would.
That's just it. Yeah, I was talking to, it was Dana from Ana Ono. And we were talking about hers, and she was a fashion designer at the time. And, the whole reason she did Ana Ono was because there was nothing out there for women to wear. But she said it was horrible because I had these bras that didn't fit. Everything was uncomfortable, and I had to get dressed and go to meetings. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I could wear t-shirts and leggings and no makeup, and I was playing with a baby. And so that's something that I can't imagine is doing that piece, like having the professional life that you had to do. Like, I don't know how I would have taught. I would have had to take a leave. I would have had to definitely take a leave all the way for almost a year.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be able to take, I don't know how long it was, like 4 or 5 months off, and also go back on a very reduced schedule.
That was phenomenal how you got to transition back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go back to kind of the beginning and the emotion stuff too, is it really does take a while for your body to build back up. And part of that is, I think that you're feeling tired too. And so your emotions are probably closer to the surface. And I think that, like you were saying, you didn't get a chance really to transition or grieve, adjust to leaving Malawi or your divorce.
Exactly.
Because you were literally, your divorce was final while you were in chemo, right?
No, it's still not finalized. We ended things in about September.
Okay.
I knew I had a lump by October. I was kind of doing okay. I went home for Christmas back to England, but I was well aware that there was something under my armpit. And second week in January, I've got my diagnosis. So there was so everything's really, really tied up with each other. It's like it's been a few weeks of real kind of sadness and nostalgia and, missing my ex, even though he's happy and he might think of me every now and then, but he's not pining for the life he had.
Right.
And I know that I'm pining for the life I had because the life I had didn't involve cancer.
Well, there you go.
It's not necessarily the life that I had with him because we had struggles for years, but it's like, it's the life before I had like an angry red scar under my boob.
Right.
And kind of chronic nausea and weighing 103 pounds. And it's bad.
I think it's not only kind of grieving your old life, but I think it's also welcoming in who you are.
Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this just as the pandemic started that March, I got my certificate as a yoga teacher. I was in the best shape of my life. Then COVID came, Zoom yoga didn't work for me. None of that stuff worked for me. I sat around the house for a year, did knitting, baked bread, did all the cliches from COVID, went to Malawi, ate rice 3 meals a day, got super pudgy, got divorced, came back, got cancer. It's like, now I weigh 103 pounds. It's ludicrous.
Yeah. I love that you just said you got pudgy. Your pudgy was probably what, 130?
You eat rice 3 times a day. It's not the healthiest thing. Like doctors at Borders is like, you can't walk in the streets. It's dangerous. I'm like, really? So I walk in the streets. It's not dangerous, but I get in trouble. So I'm just like, okay, put me in a car.
Right. So your activity level was different, like everything.
My activity level was walking from my little house on the compound up to the kitchen to get more rice. It was great. But I had a butt for the first time in my life. I had a butt. It was so nice. Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about, you having somebody come to chemo, but it's really hard. I can't imagine trying to take care of everybody's feelings.
No.
You've been the mom, you've been the nurturer, and maybe your husband doesn't know how to handle it. Your mom doesn't know how to handle it. And they don't know they're doing it, but they're making you responsible for making them feel okay about your cancer.
Yeah.
And so that's the saving grace in doing this alone.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely done this my way. And I'm not proud of some of it. Like I've definitely, I'll go back to self-care. Like I've had a hard time with that. I've had some big pity parties over a weekend, but like I'm sitting here and I'm showing up and
yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Breast Cancer Stories. To continue telling this story and helping others, we need your help. All podcasts require resources, and we have a team of people who produce it. There's costs involved, and it takes time.
If you believe in what we're doing and have the means to support the show, you can make a one-time donation, or you can set up a recurring donation in any amount through the PayPal link on our website at breastcancerstoriespodcast.com/donate.
To get the key takeaways from each episode, links to anything we've talked about, and promo codes or giveaways from our partners, sign up for our email newsletter.
You'll get notes and thoughts from me related to each episode and links to the most useful resources for all the breast cancer things. So if you have chemo brain, you'll be able to just go read your email or find anything we talked about on the podcast without having to remember it.
The link to sign up is in your show notes and on the newsletter page at breastcancerstoriespodcast.com.
We promise not to annoy you with too many emails.
Thanks for listening to Breast Cancer Stories. If you're facing a breast cancer diagnosis and you want to tell your story on the podcast, send an email to hello@theaxis.io. I'm Eva Shea, your host and executive producer. Production support for the show comes from Mary Ellen Clarkson, and our engineer is Daniel Cruiser. Breast Cancer Stories is a production of The Axis, THEAXIS.io.